In this video, we're going to take a look at creating a skeleton. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to turn off my textures, and I'll just hit 5 on the keyboard in order to deactivate those and just go back to our normal shaded mode. We don't need to see texture while we're drawing our joints, and sometimes even with the texture on that can be a little bit distracting, so we'll just shut those down. I want to switch to the side view here of our crow, and we'll start by drawing joints for the crow's body. So I want to make sure that I am on the animation menu set, and we'll go to skeleton and choose the joint tool. And I'm going to open the joint tool options and just reset these so that they're back to defaults. Now, if you haven't messed with them, they'll already be at the defaults. I just want to do that and make sure that I am using those. And then I can start to draw my joints. And we'll start down here, basically where the character's hip would be, and we'll drop our first joint down. Now, as soon as I drop that down, you can see that we really can't see it. If I go up into my viewport display, I can turn on the X-ray joints option, and that will allow me to see the joints through the geometry, making it a lot easier for me to draw and place those joints to create my skeleton. We'll add another one here. And then we'll go up, and we'll add another one up here to start the character's neck. And now you can see that while I hold my left mouse button down, I'm still allowed to locate that joint. So we'll keep that held and then just position it where we want it. And then I'll drop my last joint up at the very top. And I actually got a couple extra there. So I'll just delete those, and I can just hit delete on the keyboard to back that up. Okay, now I'm still in the tool, so I can still manipulate. And since I had those extra joints and I deleted them, it now brings me back to the top joint, which is kind of where the character's head is. And since I let go of the left mouse button now, I can use the middle mouse button to reposition that. So I'll just hold middle mouse and just relocate that so that it is in line with my character's head. When done, we'll hit Enter to complete the tool. Now, I hit Enter, which completed the skeleton, but I can still go back and move those joints. And I want to take that top joint there for the head and align it or snap it so that it is perfectly aligned to its parent. Basically, just making sure that it's in the same plane. That way, it will rotate properly when I need to rotate my character's head. So I'll select that joint and hit W, and I'll do snap to point. We can either click it here or hold V, V as in Victor, on the keyboard, and then we'll grab that axis and shift that so that it aligns, and I'm holding the left mouse button down and dragging until it snaps to the desired location, and that being its own parent joint. Now, I have those in alignment there. That skeleton looks pretty good. I could go through. We can use our arrow keys to pick, walk up and down if I want to reposition any of these joints. Next, I'm going to switch to a front view. And in the front view, we're going to draw out joints for our character's wing. Again, I need to establish my viewport here so that I can see my joints. So I'll turn that X-ray display on. And I hit 5 to go into a shaded mode. And we can use our joint tool over here, or go back and choose skeleton joint tool again. This time, I want to go back into my joint tool options. So again, we can do that through the menu, or I can double click the last tool used, and that will bring up the joint tool settings. We'll expand this out just a little bit so we can see that window better. And when I draw the wing, I'm going to turn symmetry on. This will allow me to draw one side of the character while the other side automatically gets replicated. This is located in our joint settings, symmetry, and we'll just turn this to a specific axis. And the axis we want here is the X axis. And you can see that down in the world coordinate. Here is our X. This side is our positive X. This side is our negative X. We want to mirror across that X axis. So we'll just choose X. And then I can close my joint tool settings there just to give me a bit more screen space. And then we can start to draw out our joint. When I draw these joints, I want to align them to my geometry. So I'm going to turn wireframe on shaded so that I can see exactly where those joints should go. And I want to place them where my edge loops are in order to take advantage of the deformations in the geometry. My joint tool's active. Now I still have snap to point turned on, so I'm going to uncheck that. And right next to it, we have snap to projected center. Now this is extremely useful for creating a skeleton, and we'll activate this and you can see what it's going to do here. Let's go ahead and just draw some joints. We're going to have multiple things happening here as we draw, and we'll just drop these down. And again, I'm dropping them onto the edge, and you can see that the character's right side wing is also being created. And so I draw all those out, again, lining them with my edge loops, and we'll hit enter. And now I have both the left and right side created. Now what this has done, that snap to projected center, has taken those joints, and let's switch to a perspective view, and placed those joints directly in the center of the geometry. So I do not have to go back and try and reposition this. Now this also allows us to draw these joints in the perspective view. We spoke in an earlier video prior to this one that we don't want to draw in a perspective view, but you can see as long as we're using this snap to projected center, we can draw our joints and they will be snapped to the center of our geometry. So that avoids that whole problem that we were seeing of the joints being snapped to the grid. And as we rotate around here, we can see that they are pretty much identical to the skeleton that we created earlier from the side view. So we'll just delete that. I'm going to reselect that top skeleton for the wing, and notice the difference in color. We get more of a magenta color for the other wing. And the reason for this is that Maya is telling us that there is some sort of a connection between these two. If I select the right side, I can see that all of the channels there for that first joint have a connection. And we'll scroll down a little bit here in the channel box, and you can see that that connection is a symmetry constraint. And that's what has enabled us to draw our skeleton on one side of the character and have it be replicated to the other. Now, ultimately, we need to break this connection. We need to get rid of that. If you right mouse click on the joint, you have an option in a marking menu called Break Symmetry. So I can just hit Break Symmetry, and that will disable that symmetry and remove that constraint. Now, that only worked for that particular joint. I will have to go back and go through and get rid of all of those symmetry constraints. Now, there's a real easy way we can do this by going to Edit and choose Delete All by Type and choose Constraints. All those channels are now free, and we can go through and see that none of our joints have any constraints on them, and we can now freely manipulate that other side of the skeleton. Now, to connect the wing to the body, I'll just select that joint there, and we'll select the torso middle and choose P. So I'm selecting the child first, then the parent, and hit P, and that will create a parent-child relationship. And we'll do the same thing for the opposite side to connect that as well. This gives us our skeleton. We have our wings, we have our body. We can then continue. We can draw out another joint here for the tail or the tail feathers, and then come down and start drawing out the leg. And we would do this in a side view, and then we can draw each toe in the side view as well, and even duplicate our joint and then just move them. Using our snap to center, we can move those and have them snap automatically in the middle of our skeleton.